All right. Good evening to you all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison Ostrander, and I am the Director of Risk Tolerance as well as an options specialist here at Simpler Trading. And I'm really excited to be here tonight with you guys to introduce you guys to my Profit Recycling 2.0, or as I like to call it, my pandemic trading plan. So let's go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, I just want to show you an example of how this strategy works, how I've found it to be successful in trading both in the volatile environment that we saw back in March. And even today, I put on a few trades using this strategy and was able to lock in some profits without technically using any of my day trades. So here's an example from back in March. I had a nice signal that printed at 1:30 on the 25th. We took a profit recycling trade, ended up with a $15 profit per contract. That same day, it had cash settlement on SPX. And so had a $15 minimum profit locked in on the trade that was guaranteed. I had recycled the capital back into my account. Technically didn't use any of those day trades in order to do that. And on the same day settlement where SPX closed out, I was able to bring in an additional profit to lead to a total profit of $420 per contract. It was a 381% return on my max risk. So that just gives you an idea of how this strategy can use a very small capital amount, and you're able to use it on the intraday without technically using those day trades and still be able to grow your account quite nicely. So what will you discover on tonight's webinar? Well, first I'm going to introduce to you guys how to intraday trade without using a day trade. I'm going to talk about my strategy for flipping losers into winners, right? We've all been there, stuck with a losing trade before. And I'll talk about how I use the strategy to help sometimes flip those losing trades back into winning trades. I'll talk about my secret combo for trading, as I like to call it, my dynamic duo, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Of course, an introduction to the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy and some examples of that, much like the one we talked about, live examples on real trades that I've actually entered in my accounts and locked in. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, for those of you who don't know, I actually started my trading journey fresh out of college with a BFA in theater performance, right? Not your typical way to get into finance or anything like that. I didn't start off with a business degree or a finance degree. I 100% did theater performance, acted in school shows, things like that. And to help support myself, I was introduced to the idea of trading from my dad, actually. He had been trading for a while. He was starting to expand his knowledge on options, and he thought it'd be a great idea for us kids to try and get involved. And I was the only one that kind of stepped up to the table because I was like, well, that sounds much better than waiting tables, right? Sounds like it would be a easier way to make some money. And so I first started off paper trading, proved that I kind of had a grasp, knew what I was doing, to where I then paid for some one on one coaching. And it was with that one on one coaching, that first live trade that I took, that I completely recouped my coaching fees within my first trade and was still able to walk away with the profit. And it was at that moment I realized I soon had a second passion. I was instantly hooked to trading after that. So trading seemed easy at first, right? Certainly the first few trades that I had were very nice winners, but there was soon a problem bubbling below the surface. And maybe some of you guys have also run into this problem as well. There was what I like to call the dark side of trading for my Star Wars fans out there. And there were a few things that were negative to me in regards to trading. I found myself having my eyes glued constantly to my charts and futures markets long after normal market hours were closed, right? I was looking at how Asia was opening, watching European markets. And of course, when you're up all night kind of watching the futures market, watching the different markets around the world, that of course adds to the lack of sleep that you are getting. On top of that, I was already kind of stressed out because of how many trades I had on in my account in general. So that compounded into that lack of sleep. And of course, when you have a lot of trades on, when you're up all night watching the markets, your emotions start guiding your trading rather than the technicals, right? I started off learning based off technicals, but it was very easy for my emotions to all of a sudden start guiding my trading. And when my emotions started to guide my trading, I ended up getting staggering losses in my account. And I could not believe, especially on the first loss that I took, I could not believe I had lost that much money in a trade. And so I took a step back after that and I gathered, my trading journal and I looked back at my trades and I was like, okay, why is this happening? Why am I letting my emotions guide myself? And I realized all of these issues stemmed from one source, and that is capital risk. And in turn, it was what my own personal risk tolerance was. And it was this lack of understanding capital risk that fed into all my negative thoughts about trading, that fed into that dark side of trading. And of course, right, when you have too much capital risk out there, or when you have too much invested in your account, this can usually cause, and it certainly did for me, more emotions to guide your trading and can lead to further losses overall. So once I realized that that was the case, that it was risk that was kind of causing this dark side of trading for me, it instantly became my main focus. And much like my title here at Simpler Trading states, it is always something I am constantly looking at for each trade I take. I am constantly analyzing my risk versus reward scenario on the individual trade, as well as what that risk is in turn affecting for my overall account size and value. And anytime I look at trading or developing a new strategy, risk is always my guiding focus. If there's any way I can keep my risk as low as possible and still be able to take profits and grow my account, that is the way that I am going to trade. So recently, I also became a first time mom to a beautiful baby girl. And after maternity leave, I went back to work and I was adjusting back to commuting to the office, to working, to trading, and then returning back home to the little one. And I had started to get back into a rhythm, right? It took me a little bit, but I started to get back into a rhythm of work and family life balance and trading. And I thought that this new flow was going to continue to last, right? I certainly think we all weren't expecting the coronavirus to hit, but it did, right? And it was a new way of life for everybody. And not only did the market start to plummet, but stay at home orders were issued. And I found myself once again at home trying to balance work, trying to balance trading, and now my eighth, almost 9 month old, who still proved that she liked to run the show. And for those of you who are maybe in the options room, you probably heard a bit of her this morning trying to run the show as well. So instead of just simple feedings like she had when she was first born, where it was just feeding and napping and trying to get on that routine, it's now playtime and demanding attention. And so, because of this, right, I want to spend as much time with my daughter as possible. But I still need to work, right? I still need to trade and grow my account. And at first, I struggled to find the time for it all. I was juggling, certainly a wiggle worm. She does not like to sit still. So I was juggling her in one hand while trying to scope out charts for potential trades to put on with my other hand with my mouse whenever she wouldn't want to grab it. And with, of course, unemployment at record highs, with soaring food prices continuing to go up and a growing family, I knew I needed to be even more mindful of capital than I already was. But I also needed a new plan to trade successfully while multitasking at home, right? It's hard to be able to juggle everything at once and spend so much time in front of your computer, as often time trading typically demands for. So this is where I started to develop the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, which I have found to be a very time efficient way to intraday trade options. Now, I know some of you who are certainly intraday traders are probably saying, how is that possible, right? So let's go ahead and dive into that. What is the profit recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, this is an option strategy that is primarily used to intraday trade without having to use any of those pesky day trading rules. So if you're like me, who has small accounts under 25,000, right, you have a limit of 3 day trades that you're able to take per week. And if you exceed those numbers of day trades, you either have two options available to you. One, you have to get your account back up to 25,000 or higher. Or two, you have to wait 90 days to be able to put on a new trade. Otherwise, the only action you're able to take in your account for those 90 days is to close out of any current trades that you hold, and that's it. So unlike the normal intraday trading, which causes you to stay at your computer and watching the charts, this new take on the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy allows for more consistent follow through on a very simple signal, a very simple setup, and it allows me to not have to sit at my computer in order to take that action. So, who's the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy for? Well, it's for traders who don't have the time to sit at their computer all day, right? As I mentioned, I am a new constantly, going in and out of my office here, trying to work from things at home, trying to deal with my daughter, trying to get back to trading and work. And so I don't have time anymore to sit in front of my computer screen all day. Maybe I will again in the future when she goes to school or something like that. But for now, I just don't have the time to sit here and stare at charts like I typically had time for in the past. So this new strategy is certainly for those who can't sit at their computer all day watching the chart. It's also for anyone who wants to keep their risk low while growing their accounts. This new way of doing the profit recycling strategy allows you to keep your risk very low while still being able to grow your account successfully. Last time I checked my win loss rate ratio on this strategy, I still had above 80% winners on these trades. So I'm still getting a very nice base hits, still locking in profits on the majority of the trades that I've been taking using this strategy. This strategy is also great for traders who like step-by-step plans and easy to follow entries with no guesswork involved, right? Sometimes when you're learning how to trade or you're learning a new strategy, it can be something where you're looking at the charts and you have to kind of be like, okay, that does look like a good entry. Hopefully it will work out. With this strategy, it's very clear rules. You either have the signal or you don't have the signal. If you have the signal, you look at taking the trade. If you don't have the signal, then no guesswork involved. You don't take the trade and you hold on to your capital until you get one. This is also for traders who like to take advantage of intraday moves without using a day trade, right? I talked about how overall that if you have a smaller account, especially, this is a great strategy for if you are like me and are kind of impatient or like to take signals off the intraday charts. It's a great way to be able to do that and still be able to do it in a small account that's under 25,000. So here's another example of the overnight profit strategy. We had another great signal print back in February. I took a profit recycling trade. This is on SPY now. I covered for a minimum profit of 105 per contract. So I was guaranteed $105 per contract. I had recycled my initial risk back into my account. So I had no risk sitting on the table after that, even though I technically did not use a day trade. And then the next day, I closed it out for an additional profit, locking in a total of $167 per contract, which was a 63% return on my max risk here. So very happy to once again have been able to take that quick profit and lock it in and not have technically used a day trade in order to do so. What is the best type of market for condition for this, right? Well, this strategy really can be used in any type of market. Like I mentioned, it was a great strategy using it back in February going into March when we had that huge monthly drop in SPX, the strongest monthly range that the SPX has seen certainly within the past 20 years, potentially ever. It was a great strategy to use then, but I also used this strategy on the bounce back up with the market. And like I said, I've been using this strategy just within the last several weeks when we've been kind of consolidating and had a choppy range with not as much movement, certainly compared to that volatile time. So it's a strategy that can be used in any type of market. It works great in trending as well as volatile markets, like I mentioned, and it can even be traded on symbols with recent IPOs. So here is Beyond when it first came out, and here's one of the indicators that we'll be talking about tonight in my dynamic duo. And you can see these arrows aren't a part of the indicator, it's just to point out where those bars are printing. But you can see these light pink red bars are showing a potential move lower, which did follow through on the next several bars. And the light blue bars are showing a potential bullish move to the upside, which you can see followed through within the next several bars. This first bar here was the very first day beyond traded. So immediately that next day on this first indicator, you are able to get valid signals for either moves to the upside or moves to the downside, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the webinar. So what account size do you need for this strategy? Well, this is a wonderful strategy for traders with any account size. Back before, I used to trade family accounts, and some of those family accounts were well over $1 million, right? So I've traded very large accounts, and currently right now I trade very small accounts. I have accounts that are under 25,000. I even have an account, for those of you who don't know, that I'm doing a $500 challenge in, where I started off with only $500 of capital, and I'm trying to see how quickly I can grow that account within a month with just that amount. And I've already gotten above 100% return on the risk. I'm already over $500 of locked in profit in the account itself, using this strategy within it to help grow it. So you can use it in a very small account, and you can also use it in a large account if you want to. It is a great, especially for smaller accounts, of course, though, because you won't, first of all, have your capital tied up in long-term trades, right? So you're not usually sitting out there for a long time with your capital stuck in trades, looking for them to follow through. And you're also able to take advantage of those intraday moves without technically day trading. So examples, another example on Roku here. This was some signals that I got as Roku was seeing a run into the earnings announcement. We had some great signals here on the 10-minute chart. We also had some nice valid signals on the hourly chart. So I took a trade off of this. I was originally putting it on just for a overall run into earnings trade, but within that same day, I realized I could use the profit recycling 2.0 strategy and cover my risk. And so I covered the risk for a minimum $55 profit per contract. I locked it in. So not only did I recycle the risk back into my account, but I also guaranteed myself a minimum profit, and it gave me a free trade to hold through the earnings announcement. And that trade finally actually closed out. Of course, the trade idea that I had was bullish. Roku dropped on earnings, so I wasn't able to take any additional profit. But this was a great way for me to play a trade through the earnings announcement because it left me without having any capital on the table, right? It was kind of a free lotto trade to put out there. If I didn't use this strategy and held that trade through the announcement, I would have had a full loss on the trade. But by using the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, I was still able to walk away with an overall profit going into that expiration. So why did I develop the profit recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, my trading focus has always been on ways to reduce and protect capital risk. Being an intraday trader at heart, I knew I needed to figure out a new way to trade while not having to sit focusing solely on the charts for hours at a time. I was forced to find a way to juggle everything from trading to helping run the home and still working and making every aspect of my life successful. And I know I've gotten this question in the past. For those of you who maybe took the original profit recycling class, you might be asking yourself, how is this different from the original one? And the difference between this strategy and the original one I taught a few years ago is that it is a lot less risk, a lot less capital risk being put on the table. So it's reducing that capital risk even more. You are protecting yourself from theta decay, so you're able to stay in the trade longer to allow the signal to follow through. So you're not getting hurt by theta decay if you're using a same day expiration like an SPX, for example. And you're still able to take and lock in profits along the way. So it's different from that strategy because, like I said, it's a much smaller capital risk that you're starting off with, and it protects you against the theta decay, which is the reason why I am able to put on the trade, step away from my computer, do things around the house if I need to, take care of my daughter if I need to. And then oftentimes on my phone or something like that, I'll see that I've been able to recycle the capital back into my account and locked it in without technically sitting at my computer watching the charts in order to do so. So it's a more time efficient way to be able to intraday trade these options. So how can we profit from less chart time? And I kind of mentioned this earlier, right? I know my intraday traders out there are like, how are you able to use this strategy and not be sitting staring at your charts, right? That kind of seems like it wouldn't be the case. But that's exactly the position I'm in right now, right? I am able to step away from my computer and have put on this trade based off the signal that I'm seeing, right? It's a very clear signal. So unlike the first strategy where you might have felt like it was a little bit more guesswork on determining whether you had a bullish or bearish entry, in this case, it's a very clear signal. Once I get the signal, I can jump into the trade. I can immediately set an order to cover my risk. And then I'm able to step away. I can do other things or do other things at work, not necessarily pay fully attention to my charts, and still be able to lock in these profits. And of course, for those of you that have your own jobs, your family, right, other passions, maybe you're in retirement and you want to just go out fishing or golfing for the afternoon or take a jog, it's a great way to be able to use this strategy and do that while trying to find that balancing act in your life, much like I've had to do for my own. And this strategy, like I mentioned earlier, can be implemented with just a quick glance at the chart and a trade order sent out. So it's a very clear signal, like I mentioned. If you get the signal, you can jump in the trade. If not, then you're just holding on to your capital. You don't have to put it out there at risk and force the trade to jump into. So here's another example of the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, this time on TTWO. So I had some great bullish divergent bar signals. I had a great signal in the compound breakout tool. So I took the profit recycling trade and I was able to lock in a minimum $274 profit per contract, which was already a 118% minimum return on the risk. Much like the Roku example that I mentioned, this one as well, I was able to hold through the earnings announcement as a free lotto trade. So instead of, putting on kind of a lotto trade and having to risk that full amount of capital and needing to be okay losing it if the earnings announcement went against me, in this case, I was able to put on the trade and have no fear about whether or not the announcement went against me in the initial trade idea, because I knew no matter what, I was walking away with a profit guaranteed in my account and with, more importantly, my overall capital protected. So what are the benefits of the profit recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, you can trade without having to be at the computer all market day. It's great for building up and growing accounts. These are very low risk trades. So like I mentioned, compared to the original strategy, these are very low risk trades. So you have the advantage to put these on symbols maybe that cost a bit more, right? Like Amazon or Tesla, where an individual strike can sometimes cost $20 to $30 at a time to put on, or in more volatile markets, right? When in volatile markets, you see that option prices start to get a lot more expensive due to the uncertainty and the moves that can occur within a day. This strategy still keeps your risk very low, even in those market conditions. So you're not having to, put a good chunk of your account into a trade and are looking to try and cover it. This is a very low risk way to start the trade off and to be able to still cover it and lock in a profit. It's an easy to follow plan with no guesswork involved. Like I mentioned, the signals that I'm using are very clear cut. It's either there or it's not there for me to jump into a trade. And it's a way to manage capital and flip trades around when the chart direction changes. So I kind of mentioned this at the start of the webinar on things that we would go over, right? Flipping losing trades back into winning trades. And with this strategy, I am also able to do that. I'm able to manage capital. For example, as we'll go over an example here in a second, but let's say I was going into a bullish trade and all of a sudden the market and the chart just start to consolidate, right? We don't ever get that bullish move. Well, with this strategy, I'm able to flip that bullish trade idea into a more non-directional trade idea and still be able to allow myself an overall profit to lock in. So here's another example. This is the EA one. This is the one I mentioned where I was originally in a trade. And for those of you in the room, right, we finally started to see EA take off to take some profits. But I was also in a very short dated trade whenever this pullback started to occur. And we had a little bit of consolidation and a pullback down to support. And I was in an overall bullish trade at that time with a same week expiration. And if I had just left that trade on, if I had done nothing with it, it would have ended up being a full loss to my account. In this case, I used the profit recycling 2.0 strategy and was able to flip that losing trade back into an overall winning trade, giving myself a minimum profit of a $9 profit per contract. So once again, by doing this action, I was able to walk away with a guaranteed, mind you, very small profit, but still a profit overall. And most importantly to me, protecting my capital risk on the initial trade. The next day, I was able to close it out, take an additional $30 to create a total $39 profit per contract, and be able to recycle that back into my account, which was actually a 51% return on the original capital risk. So instead of taking the full loss on the trade, which if I had done nothing, it would have been a full loss on the trade, I was able to flip it, matching the chart direction here, right? Matching the pullback and kind of consolidation that we saw around the 30 period simple, and still be able to walk away with a profit. So what time frame can this be used on? Well, this strategy can work on multiple time frames from intraday to monthly charts, right? I've shown you examples on intraday time frames. I've shown you examples on daily time frames so far. I primarily like to use this strategy on a 1 hour chart for my intraday trades. I've also started to use it on a 30-minute chart, which I have still found to be pretty successful for my win-loss rate scenario. And I like to certainly use it on the daily chart, oftentimes locking in profits the same or the next day with this strategy. So this strategy, it solves a big problem for me. It's a strategy that is a great way to grow the account, spending as little time as possible in front of the computer. It's a strategy that is low risk. And like I said, can generate consistent profits. For my win rate, it's been currently above 80% last time I checked on my win-loss ratio. And that's not including the ones that I manage flipping from losing trades back into winners. That's solely just on taking the initial entry and being able to cover it for a locked-in profit. And it's all by following some very simple steps, some very straightforward signals that we have from our technicals on the chart. So here's another example from SPY. This here as well gave some great signals off the divergent bar and compound breakout tool, which we'll talk about here a little bit later. I took a profit recycling trade. I covered the risk for a minimum $91 profit per contract. And this one was actually one I had to manage. So I actually covered it. I had a risk higher than this. I covered it for a actual 91 debit per contract, excuse me. So I still had some risk out on the table on the 25th. It wasn't as much as the initial risk on the trade, but it was still, some risk that I held overnight. And then I closed it out a few days later for a total profit of $4 per contract, right? Which is not a very big profit. But the idea here, of course, is that I managed a initial losing trade back into a winning trade. And most importantly, protected my capital to do so. And it was, just a small percent return on the max risk that I had at the time. So the keys to success. I kind of been talking about and hinting at that dynamic duo, and the keys to success for this profit recycling 2.0 strategy being so successful comes from the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool. So as I like to call it, it's my dynamic duo of indicators, my Batman and Robin of indicators to use with this strategy. And so as a person travels along their trading journey, they discover new ways to identify setups on the charts, right? That's certainly been the case for me. And the Batman of the two indicators to me is the divergent bar indicator. And one of the ways I found to identify setups is through the divergent bar. And to identify a proper divergent bar, it takes time to do the math, right? So the problems I ran into before I had this indicator developed by Eric is that it took too long for me to do the math to determine whether or not it was a valid divergent bar. So it kept me from finding quick setups and finding more setups than I could because I had to sit there on each chart, on each symbol to kind of do the math to determine whether or not a divergent bar was valid. And then the other issue I ran into is I had to do the math by hand, which is subjected to human error. And I myself am dyslexic, so it's very easy for me to all of a sudden switch around a number in my head when I'm doing the math. And sometimes when I did that before I had the indicator, I thought I might have had a valid signal when I didn't, or sometimes I didn't think I had a valid signal when I did. And I would be missing out on opportunities or maybe jumping into a trade opportunity that wasn't technically a valid entry to do so. So the other indicator that I like to use, the Robin, the sidekick of the two indicators, is the compound breakout tool. And that indicator is made up of 3 separate studies. It was made up of the stochastics full, the MACD histogram, and several different simple moving averages that I like to track. And so all 3 of these studies individually can be great to look at, but can sometimes lead to false signals individually. So what I like to do is I like to combine all 3 of those indicators together. And I liked for all of the signals that I used on each of these indicators to be in line. And that to me helped clear up the false signals. But what ended up happening is that it created a cluttered chaos on my charts. If you think my charts kind of look like they have a lot of indicators on it now, you did not want to see it before this compound tool was created. It was crazy looking. And I knew there had to be a simpler way to view each of these signals and to also make sure that everything was in line and that I was actually looking at a valid signal on the chart. And so when I joined Simpler Trading, yeah, I'd been trading for quite some time prior to that. And then when I came here to Simpler Trading and started working, I was introduced to the master inventor of indicators, Mr. Eric Purdy. Um, Probably some of you guys know him. He is the director of quantitative strategies here at Simpler Trading. And I found myself at Eric's doorstep, hoping once again he could work his magic so that I could identify a divergent bar with a quick glance at the chart. So I didn't have to do any math involved. The math could already be done for me. And also to see if he could combine the signals that I look at for the compound breakout tool into a very easy to read indicator. So I didn't have as much mess on my charts overall, and a very simple way to view whether or not a signal was valid. And so I explained to Eric the criteria and math needed to determine both the individual indicators, and he was able to create the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool. And as I mentioned, this is my dynamic duo of indicators that I use when trading the profit recycling 2.0 strategy. So I'm very thankful to him for creating these indicators. It has helped make my trading so much easier and so much more fluid, being able to jump from chart to chart and not have to spend so much time sitting there looking at each one, trying to do the math, trying to make sure the signals are there. With a very quick glance, I'll know whether or not I have a valid divergent bar indicator signal or a valid signal in the compound breakout tool. So what does this indicator do? Well, the divergent bar indicator is used to help determine whether the next bar, or I like to typically give it 3 bars, will either create a higher high or not compared to the current bar. And vice versa, it can also help determine whether the next bar or the next few bars will create a lower low compared to the current bar. So it's a very quick way to determine whether or not I might get follow through of a move to the upside or a move to the downside if this indicator starts to print. What does the compound breakout tool do? Well, the compound breakout tool is used to help determine the type of trend, whether it's bearish, bullish, or consolidating. And this indicator can also be used to help identify the start of that trend as well as the end of the trend. So when I put those powers combined, right, into signals, it can lead to some great trade entries to take along the way. Here, for example, in SPX, we had some nice bullish divergent bars, which are these light blue bars on my chart. You can see down here on the compound breakout tool, we had a valid bullish signal to the upside. And notice how each of them followed through with some sort of higher high within the next several bars, as well as in an overall bullish trend. So it's a great signal to use in combination with one of each, in line with each other, right? It's a great dynamic duo of indicators because it can give you some pretty clear entry signals to jump into a trade and allow you to take some profits along the way with a high probability that the signal is going to follow through. So what time frame can these indicators be used on? Well, they can be used on any time frame. It can be used from an intraday time frame all the way to a monthly time frame for the signals. What type of bar, right? Well, for the divergent bar indicator in particular, right, you might be asking what kind of bar can this be used on? I personally, as you might have seen from my examples, like to use the standard bar. However, if you prefer the candlestick bar, it will work on that as well. And I know some of you guys have asked me before, right? You have the grab candles from Raghee, or you might have the 10x indicator. And there is a way to still be able to view both, especially on Thinkorswim. So what I like to do, let me just pull over my Thinkorswim charts here really quickly. Ooh, that kind of looked weird. There we go. So what I like to do is I go into grid mode. And so I'll have the 10x bars on one chart of my studies, for example, and on the other chart, I'll keep it the same time frame, I'll keep it the same signal, but I'll have my divergent bars, for example, or my grab candles on the other chart. That way, if I want to use both of those indicators in my setup or in my trading strategy for that day, right? I'm able to still see if the 10x bars are giving me a clear signal, if the grab candles are, and I'm still able to see if the divergent bar indicator is giving me a clear signal whether to jump in or not. And ideally, right, if those signals are in line with each other. So the best part about this divergent bar and compound breakout tool indicator is once you upload it, there's nothing else you need to change except for maybe the color that you want to choose. So if, certainly if you're colorblind and you want to choose colors that aren't going to be red and green, you can change it to whatever colors you need to. But Eric's done an excellent job in creating these indicators. So there's nothing on the inside that you really need to do or change in order for it to start giving you valid signals. Once they're uploaded on your charts, other than, the color aspect, you should be good to go and getting these signals to print valid on your charts without having to do anything else. So here's another example on SPX of an intraday style trade that I took. This one was a recent one back in June 12th. And we can see we had some nice signals here on the divergent bar. We had some great signals on the compound breakout tool in the smaller time frames. So I took a bearish trade idea, and I actually took a few different trade ideas off of this one signal and was able to lock in an $85 minimum profit per contract, which was a 51% minimum return on the max risk. So I was able to take a few trades off this signal off that day and still be able to have some locked in profit. I was able to recycle the risk back into my account. And then I had some free trades out there to where I can still be able to close them out for an additional profit. Here's another example on SPY where I took a trade, I covered it using the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy for a 107 profit per contract. I closed the trade the next day for an additional profit, locking in a total of 199 profit per contract overall, which was a 68% return on the max risk I initially put in the trade. Here's another example on SPY, and I know a lot of my examples come from SPY and SPX, so just fair warning. SPX is one of the main symbols I've traded since the start of my trading career, so it's always kind of my go-to. And I love the fact that I'm able to trade it and be able to have it be cash settled, so I can actually use the same day expiration and let it cash settle at close, still not using a day trade. So you'll probably see quite a few of the examples from that. But as I've mentioned, some of the examples I've shown prior to this, you can use it on symbols like Roku, on Amazon, on Tesla, and still be able to take advantage of this strategy on, non-index style trades. So on SPY, for example, I got a great signal to print. I took a profit recycling trade and covered it for a minimum of a 102 profit per contract, locking it in. Here, once again, was another signal on SPY. Once again, used the same strategy, the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy, covered it for a minimum $80 profit per contract. A few days later, right, this one I held on to for a few days, but on the 27th, I was able to close out for a total profit of $160 per contract, which was a 21% return on my max risk. So not only can you guarantee yourself a small minimum profit, but oftentimes you can still lock in an additional profit on top of that for the trade and still be able to compound those profits back into your account. And like I said, most importantly, it allows you to protect your overall capital risks to start off with. Once again, another example on SPX. Here we had a bearish divergent bar Took the profit recycling trade, covered it for a minimum $30 profit per contract, and then I had a free trade out there. Once again, most importantly, protecting my capital risk and locking in at least some sort of profit on the trade itself. Here was one on work, right? I mentioned that not not all of these will be SPY and SPX. You can use it on other symbols. Here was a trade I took on the 29th. I profit recycled the trade on the 2nd. So this one was based more off the daily chart. I had a great signal with the bullish divergent bar and compound breakout tool. I was able to lock in a 203 minimum profit per contract on the trade. The minimum percent return on the original risk was 148%. So already had a great profit locked in compared to my initial risk on the trade. And this one was as well. I was able to hold through the earnings announcement. And no matter what happened through earnings, I wasn't sweating because I knew, first of all, that my capital was already protected on the trade. And second of all, I've already walked away with some sort of profit in hand from this movement. So no matter if it gapped up, if it stayed sideways, if it gapped down like it did on earnings, I was still going to be able to walk away with a profit locked in. Once again, another example on SPX. This one had some great bullish signal setups. So I took the trade, I profit recycled it for the same day. It gave me a $60 minimum profit per contract, and it was a 43% minimum return on the original risk overall. And here's what I did on Tesla. This one was actually just last week, I think it was. It was on the 15th. Yeah, last week. So last week I entered this trade. The same day, I was able to take action using the profit recycling 2.0 strategy. I had intended this trade to actually hold on for longer term. I was planning to hold the risk overnight. But instead, from the movement, from the signals, I was actually able to use the strategy, avoid taking a day trade, right? Avoid those day trading rules, and still was able to lock in a $53 minimum profit per contract. I closed the trade out at the end of the week for $153 profit per contract, walking away with 104% return on my max risk. And I actually could have taken much more profit on this trade, but I closed it out early in the day. I was happy with the profit that I had there. And so I locked it in. If I had remained patient into the end of the day, I probably could have walked away with a few $100 more in my pocket per contract, but I was okay with that. I was happy with the profit I took there on Tesla, certainly. And then with SPX here, once again, was able to jump into a trade with some great signals. My dynamic duo was in line with each other. So I opened the trade, I profit recycled it the next day. I was able to have a $300 minimum profit per contract, and it was a 207 minimum return on the original risk that I took that day on SPX. So what did we talk about in this webinar? Well, I introduced to you how to intraday trade without using a day trade, right? I kind of introduced to you that idea. I talked about my strategy for flipping losing trades back into winners with that EA example. I talked about my secret combo for trading, right? My dynamic duo of indicators and how that has helped give me very clear signals to jump in and out of trades and lock in profits. I've introduced to you the idea of the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, as well as just walked with you through some real life examples that I've put on in my account and how I've been able to use this strategy to lock in profits along the way. So what's next? Well, I've been there before too, right? Blowing out your account can be frustrating and disheartening. I've done this early on in my trading career. Like I said, it is the most emotional thing that you might be able to go through as a trader. And it can certainly even make yourself question, like, do I even continue with trading? Why? Like I've lost so much money. Why would I do this? And I've been there too, right? It can be really disheartening. And certainly in the current work from home environment, even the most seasoned traders can still have problems with juggling responsibilities and still trying to grow their accounts. And of course, everybody can use some extra clarification on the chart and on narrowing down great entries and exits. So that's what my class is going to be about this Saturday, right? It's really going to dive in how I use the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, how I use these indicators, and how I'm able to take these moves on the intraday charts, as well as talk about that management and how to flip losing trades back into winning trades. So you don't always have to take a full loss or take a loss on a trade. and still be able to protect your capital. So there are several different packages that we've made available out there for you guys. The basic package will include the profit recycling class this Saturday, which will be from 12 to 4. And the class will be recorded. So if you're not actually able to make it for the full class time, or you can only make it for part of the session that day, it's completely recorded and available to you. I actually like to do on my classes as well an e-learning module. So that way you can go back and quiz yourself. And if you miss anything on the quiz, what I like to do is I add a timestamp on the quiz to where you can find the answer in the actual class. So that way, if you miss a question, you'll have the timestamp of where that is in the class. You don't have to rewatch the class to try and figure out what the answer is or to try and refresh your memory around it. You can specifically go to that part in the class and then be able to digest the information from there and understand what it was you missed about the question, and ideally, right, learn from it and be able to understand that knowledge. The basic package will also include the divergent bar indicator, right? That Batman of the two indicators will be included, as well as I like to typically give out a bonus class. And in this bonus, I pre-recorded already an introduction to butterflies class. So for those of you who are newer to trading, I know some of you kind of mentioned this kind of sounds complicated. To me, it's not at all, right? And I know I've been trading for a long time, so you're like, okay, well, to you, it's not complicated. But I really like to give y'all as much education as possible so that you can, as a new trader, jump in and still be able to use this strategy successfully. Because certainly as a new trader, right, you might be starting off with a smaller account, which is what this strategy is really for, and being able to grow it. So I pre-recorded an introduction to butterflies class. This too, I also plan to create an e-learning module around. It will take some time for both of those to be created, but they will be put out there eventually. And that way, if you purchase this package immediately, you'll already have access to the butterfly class. So if you want to watch that prior to the class on Saturday, you can, or if you want to review it at a later time at your convenience, you'll certainly be able to. So the basic package includes all three of those items. The pro package at $697 includes everything in the basic, the class on Saturday, the divergent bar indicator, the introduction to butterflies class, as well as the compound breakout tool. So it also includes the Robin of the dynamic duo. So you'll get both of the indicators in the pro package. And then the elite package includes everything in both of those packages, as well as the 2 days of live trading. And I actually wanted to add an additional live trading the following week. So that way we can kind of wrap up any trades that we might still be in, and ideally still look for some new trade setups to jump into. And the way I like to view the class and the live trading is the class is kind of like the lecture, right? It's where you learn all the information, you take your notes, you kind of study it and you get it down. And then the live trading is the lab, right? It's where you actually can implement the knowledge that you learned in the class, and you'll actually be able to see real time the signals that I'm looking for, where I'm looking to put on the trade, why I chose maybe those strikes to use when entering the trade, how I'm covering it. And ideally, right, I can't guarantee anything. I don't know what the future holds on those market days. But ideally, right, we take trades to where we're locking in profits and where it pays for your education, right? That's always my goal. I can't guarantee anything, but my goal is always to try and take, certainly enough trades during the live trading, but also take successful trades to where it can cover your education and ideally still allow you to walk away with a profit, much like my first trade did with my one-on-one coaching. So I know some of you guys are probably asking, well, what if I already have the indicators, right? Not a problem. I would never make you pay again for something that you already have. That just seems silly to me, right? I'm not going to make you double pay for an indicator you already have. If you want, please give the sales team or customer service a call or send them an email and they'll be able to take care of you. They won't make you pay that additional price if you just want the class itself, right? Or maybe one of the two indicators, maybe you already have the divergent bar indicator and want the compound breakout tool or vice versa. Give them a call and they'll be able to set up a special package for you to where you're not paying that full $397 or $697 price to be able to lock that in and still be able to attend the class or attend the live trading as well. And of course, the number down here, if you wanted to give them a call, is 512-266-8659, right? So just to go over what those packages are, again, the basic package at $397, it includes the profit recycling class on Saturday. So I've been working on the class slides and got them almost completed. There's going to be a lot of information in the class. I'm really excited about it. So there will be a lot of material that you'll be able to get out of this. I think it's really good. Kind of as I've been typing out the slides, I realized maybe I should have broken this out into two classes, but I like that it's all combined. It gives you a great way not only to introduce the intraday style trading, but also on how to flip those losing trades back into winners. So you're getting a lot here. Even if you took the original profit recycling class, or maybe you took the overnight profit strategy class that I've done in the past, this will give you a whole new education and setup to be able to trade these strategies. And like I said, it will also introduce you to how to flip losing trades back into winning trades and the steps that I go through in order to do that. It also includes the divergent bar indicator, as well as that bonus introduction to butterflies class I mentioned. And the class itself will be this Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. And like I said, if you can't attend the class, or maybe you can only attend a portion of the class live, and you still want to participate in it, the entire class will be recorded. It will always be available to you on the website. So there's no issue for you there, to be able to join in, even if you can't be there all day Saturday, right? Maybe it's a beautiful day and you want to be at the lake. Totally understand, right? That's the benefit of having the class recorded, is always available to you. And like I mentioned, all of the packages will include the basic, the bonus of the introduction to butterflies class. So for those of you who are newer to trading, right, and maybe are not familiar with the butterfly strategy, I'm going to introduce you to that strategy in this bonus class that I've already pre-recorded. So it's already out there. So as soon as you purchase the class, you are immediately given access to this class that I've pre-recorded and done, to where you can kind of test your knowledge, and it will always be made available to you on the website once you've purchased it as well. The Pro package at $697 includes the live class on Saturday, and the recording for it, of course, the divergent bar indicator. It includes the intro to butterflies class that I just mentioned, and it includes the compound breakout tool, right? Which to me is a beautiful indicator. It helps determine trend on when it's starting a bullish or bearish trend, when it's potentially showing you consolidation. And we'll walk through how to read all those signals in Saturday's classes. So that way you can really be an expert by the end of the class on that indicator and know how to implement it on your charts and your trades itself. The Elite package at $997 includes everything in that Pro package, right? It includes the class Saturday. It includes both of the dynamic duo indicators, the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool. It includes the bonus introduction to butterflies class, and it includes those days of live trading and the additional live trading day that I'm adding on. So once again, the thing that I hope on the live trading days, right? If I could read the future, then I would definitely make sure we jump into only winning trades on those days. But I can't read the future. I don't know what the markets hold those days. But I can certainly find setups using this strategy, whether it's on the intraday chart or on the daily chart every day. So it's not going to be an issue finding trade setups, I think, on those days. And ideally, those trade setups that we jump into will be able to help pay for your education. And ideally, right, if we take some nice profits, pay for the education and still allow you an overall profit in your account. That's always my goal whenever I'm doing live trading for classes like this, is to pay for your education, much like I was able to do on my one-on-one coaching. And those live trading days will be held June 30th and July 2nd from 8:30 to 11:30. And then we'll take a lunch break, and it will be from 1 to 3 p.m. So it will be the majority of the market day that will be doing the live trading days. So you'll have me most of the day available to you, as we look for signals and try and take some trades to make some profits off of them. And of course, right, July 2nd is technically the last day of trading for next week, because July 3rd will be a market holiday. So we'll have the benefit of also having that same day expiration on SPX, to where you can see how you can actually intraday trade without day trading, and then just potentially let it go into cash settlement for kind of a lotto trade into the close that day. So hopefully we'll find some nice setups that day to jump into and be able to take some profits on as well. And then, as I mentioned, I wanted to add on an extra day of live trading, right? 2 days is great for live trading, but I wanted to add one more to this class. So we'll have an additional following live session with the Elite package, not the next week, but the week after. So there will be 3 total live trading days. Once again, the times will still be from 8:30 to 11 and then 1 to 3. So you'll have the majority of the day with me to be able to find trade ideas, certainly to ask questions. And if you can't make it for one of the live trading days, or maybe you can only make it for a portion of it, once again, all of those sessions will be recorded and made available to you. So even if you're not able to make it for the full session, if you want to see how I'm looking for these signals during live real market hours, if you want to see how I'm implementing these trades, how I'm covering the risk within the same day, and not using a day trade, all of these live trading sessions will be recorded and made available in the class section. So not only is the class itself recorded, but all of the live trading sessions are recorded as well. So you'll be able to view them. And let's say it's 2 months from now, and you want to go back and review how I was finding those signals, right? How I was setting up my trades. You'll be able to go back and view them, you know, in several months' time, and be able to kind of review those live trading days during real market hours in the recording. So at the end of the day, right, I wanted to introduce you guys to the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy. This is what I really want you to learn and comprehend on Saturday's class, and how it can help you create consistent profits with limited risk. And most importantly, help protect your capital when the technicals change direction, right? This has been a very useful strategy to me, especially given the current work environment that I find myself trading in. And I want to be able to introduce that to you guys as well, because if you're the same as me, or if you've just struggled with capital risk in the past, I want to give y'all a strategy to where hopefully it too can help you out in protecting your capital and giving you a very limited risk way to trade and still be able to grow your account overall. I also want to leave the guesswork out of your trading, right? I want to give you a simple step by step plan on when to take an entry for a trade and be able to cover it and lock in a profit, so that you don't have any guesswork on, is this a clear signal? I don't know. I feel like I should jump in. No, it's a very clear signal. It's either there or it's not, to where you can take it and jump into a trade. Or if it's not there, then you're just holding on to your capital, waiting until you find a clear signal for entry. And I also want to help create profits in your account, right? While spending less time in front of your computer. Like I mentioned, compared to the original profit recycling strategy, you do not need to sit in front of your computer all day to be able to take advantage of the intraday moves. Certainly to take advantage of the moves on the daily, weekly, or monthly chart, and still be able to take trades and take profits to grow your account with. I also on Saturday want to give you more information about the divergent bar indicator and compound breakout tools. So for those of you who don't have the indicators or maybe want a refresher about it, I want to give you more information on what everything is included in there, how to use these tools to help identify potential entry and exits, right? So maybe you're going to use it in line with the Squeeze Pro indicator. Maybe you want to use it in line with the 10X bars and kind of make your own toolbox of indicators and studies that you like to use to give you clear signals. And I think these could be a great addition to the tools that you use. I know I've found it to be very helpful with the indicators that I like to use on being able to find successful trade entries and take profits along the way. And of course, last but not least, how to grow an account even if you struggled in the past, right? I've been there. I have struggled early on in my trading and growing accounts. I've taken those losses, not understanding capital risk. And so in the class, we will talk about one of the ways that I like to set up risk tolerance for my account. So I know that I'm never over investing in any one trade. So I'm never over investing all of the capital in my account, and to where I'm personally able to still sleep at night, because I know I don't have that much capital risk on overnight, and I'm still able to grow the account successfully. And then, of course, I want you to learn in real time. For those of you who want to take the days of live trading to understand how the setups work, how the divergent bar indicator and compound breakout tool work together as a dynamic duo, and how to implement the profit recycling 2.0 strategy during live market hours, I want you to be able to understand all that, and certainly have the live trading days to be able to learn from that, or at least if you're not able to attend all of them, to have the recordings of those sessions so you can see in real time what I'm looking at. So once again, the packages, the basic package at $397 is the Saturday class, the divergent bar indicator, the bonus introduction butterfly class. The pro package at $697 includes all of that, including the compound breakout tools. So you'll get both indicators there. And the elite package at $997 includes everything, including the live trading days and the bonus live trading day as well. And as I mentioned before, guys, if you have already one or both of the indicators, please feel free to email or call in to customer support, and they'll be able to set up a package for you, whether you just are interested in the class or you're just interested in the class and live trading, and they'll be able to do that at a discount of what this price is at. So you're not paying double for the indicator, right? You're not having to pay again for the divergent bar or compound breakout tool or both. I would never make you guys do that, right? So I want to be able to allow you guys to still attend the class and the live trading and not necessarily have to pay the full price if you already have the tools in your toolbox already. And as of right now, we do also accept PayPal credit. So this is something new and exciting that we're doing here at Simpler Trading. So if you go to the payment method and choose PayPal, on the blue button there at the bottom, you can use pay with PayPal credit. So this is a great way that if you don't want to pay all $397 up front, right? Maybe you want to pay a portion of it at a time, month to month. This is a great way that you can be able to do that with 0% interest for 6 months and make smaller monthly payments along the way. I know there's I've done this for Christmas presents and things in the past where I didn't want to pay for everything all at once, and it's a great way to be able to pay for things and small portions at a time. And ideally, right, if you're using the strategy along the way in those 6 months, you're still able to pay for the class overall during that time frame. So if you have any questions, right now is the time to ask. I know I've had a few come in, so I'd be happy to spend some time trying to answer these questions that you have. I know somebody asked, when are the live trading days? The live trading days are June 30th and July 2nd of next week from 8:30 to 11, and then from 1 to 3 p.m. Yeah, Bill, of course. The divergent bar indicators, we'll talk about that in Saturday's class on what exactly makes a divergent bar. Yes, it can be used for beginners. So like I mentioned, Dr. Krawczyk, I hope I pronounced your name properly. But yes, I do think this strategy can be used for beginners. It might seem a little overwhelming in this webinar, but we will on Saturday break down the things step by step on how to create this strategy, how to use it. I feel like I was been very clear in the slides on how you this, even if you're a beginner trader. And that's why I also included the bonus introduction to butterflies class. So that way, if you want to review the butterfly strategy ahead of time, which is something that we do implement within the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy, you have this whole introduction class made available to you already pre-recorded to where you can walk through the information prior to the class. And then in the class itself, we still cover it, right? So even if you don't watch this class ahead of time, I feel like the class on Saturday will still be able to cover everything as more a beginner trader for you. So I really try and break down the information as easy and as basic as possible, as simple as possible for you guys to be able to learn. Because I've been there myself, right? When I first started trading, I had no idea what a put and call was. I was like, what is this terminology? And so I really try and break that down in the class. And of course, if you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to help answer it and, explain things to where hopefully, I explain it in a way to where you guys can understand it and be able to use the strategy successfully. And Sherry, when I use the term contract, it depends how many contracts you want. Sometimes I only do one contract trades, right? Other times I do multiple contracts. In the examples, kept it as the profit per contract because everybody has a different account size. So for myself and the smaller accounts that I trade in, oftentimes I'll use only one contract per trade to jump into it. If you have a larger account size that's, above 25,000 or something, you might be using 5 contracts per trade or 10 contracts per trade. So that's why I broke it down in the examples the way I did. But like I said, in the challenge account that I'm trading in right now, where I've only started with $500 of capital, I was only using one contract trades and I implemented this strategy to help grow that account. And like I said, I've currently right now, the last time I did an update on it had over $700 of locked in profits in that account. And I never even risked the full $500. So once again, I was still keeping my risk in mind. And even though I started off with such a small amount, I still never put that full $500 into multiple trades at any one time. I still always had some cash available in the back if I needed to. So yeah, you can use it from one contract to multiple contracts. And yes, Angie, the divergent bar indicator and compound breakout tool can work independently of each other. They are available on Thinkorswim or TradeStation. Those are the two tools that's available for. So if you have a different charting setup, we haven't done the coding around that. We've only done the coding for these indicators on Thinkorswim or on TradeStation to be able to use them. But if you're talking about if you can use the indicators individually, right? If you don't want to use them together as a dynamic duo, which I certainly recommend doing because it's a great signal. But if you don't want to, they do work separately by themselves as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to read the questions here. And Acer, so we'll talk about that on Saturday. Acer's asking, when you get the entry signal for the divergent bar tool, do you have to enter the trade immediately, or is it good 10 to 20 minutes later? It depends on how quickly the signal moves. So for example, there was a signal on Eli Lilly on the weekly chart with the divergent bar indicator that printed that has not technically followed through yet. So let me pull that up so I can show you guys. So here's a current chart example of Eli Lilly. This is the weekly time frame. So I mentioned how this can work on multiple time frames. And the other week, we printed a bullish divergent bar, which means we'll see some sort of higher high within the next few weeks. I usually give it 3 bars time, so in 3 weeks. And this signal has not technically followed through. So you might have opened that trade Friday, right? Which if you were in the main options room, we opened a trade on this and I've already taken a small profit off the table. But this is actually a signal I'm considering jumping back into because it's still valid, because the signal technically hasn't followed through. So sometimes it might follow through immediately. Like here, for example, was a bullish divergent bar. It followed through immediately to the upside to where, you know, you might not take the signal anymore. But sometimes it takes a few bars for it to follow through to where you still might have the advantage to jump into the trade. It all depends on what the market and the price is doing at that time. And Zuyu, it's hard to say how much you can expect from a monthly return from this strategy, right? Because it all depends on whether or not you're getting the signals to print for it. Now, like I mentioned, on the intraday chart setup, not every day do I get a signal. I might have to like shuffle around from SPX to something like Tesla or Amazon if I was really trying to get an intraday signal every day to jump into and use this strategy for. If it's based off the daily chart or a longer time frame, then absolutely I can typically find a signal every day to jump into. And then at that point, it really just depends how much capital you're putting out there at risk in order to get a 1 to 2K profit per week. But we'll definitely talk about that in the class. We'll talk about that risk. So, you know, certainly we can see if it can fit for your account like that. Yeah, and Lies, if you've already bought the indicators and you feel like they don't match up, for myself, the divergent bar colors, I changed on my charts. So we'll talk about that in Saturday, how you can change the colors. I changed the colors because to me, it's easy to associate red or a light pink color with a bearish signal and a blue green bar with a bullish signal. So that's why I changed the colors on my charts personally. But otherwise, the actual indicator itself, there's no change to them. So if you already hold the indicators, right, other than the colors, it should match up the same. And what platform should you trade with? Well, I personally use Thinkorswim and Tastyworks. If you don't want to use Thinkorswim, I know their commissions are a little bit higher than Tastyworks, for example. What I've done in the past, right, until this challenge account, what I did in the past is I opened a Thinkorswim account. I put a little bit of money in that account, but I never traded out of it. I only had the money in there so I could get the live data feed. And that way I could view the signals and the indicators on the charts, because I think they'd have one of the best charting platforms. I've been with a lot of brokerage platforms over the years. I was with Options House. which turned into Charles Schwab, Trade Monster, all these brokerage platforms that ended up getting bought out by other companies. I was with them for a while. And right now I'm currently just with Thinkorswim and Tastyworks. And Thinkorswim is the longest brokerage platform I've been with throughout my trading career. It's actually one of the first ones I've been with and I've constantly used. And it's mainly because I love their charting platform. So even when I didn't always trade out of that platform, right? As long as I had a little bit of money in the account, I was able to get that live data feed and still be able to use the charts accordingly. So if you have a different platform that you like to trade out of, certainly you can use that, and then just look to use Thinkorswim for your charting. That's what I've personally done in the past, and I've found works great. Yes. And Angie, yes, as soon as you purchase one of the packages, those indicators will immediately be sent to your account. So you can start putting them on your charts today and start using them the next day during market hours if you wanted to, or at least start seeing how they work during market hours. Absolutely. So as soon as you purchase the class, not only will the indicators be made available to you immediately to put onto your charts, but the introduction to butterflies class as well will be made to you available to you immediately to be able to view whenever you want. And Liz, yes, I will go over some of the other indicators that I use. I do use Bollinger Bands. I do use simple moving averages. We'll talk about those indicators in the class. A lot of the other indicators, not all of them, but a lot of the other indicators I use on my charts are free. And with this strategy, to me, the main indicators that I would be looking at using that are paid are the divergent bar and compound breakout tool. And of course, I do like the squeeze indicator. That's free for anyone who has Thinkorswim. So of course, that's certainly a handy one. You don't necessarily need the Squeeze Pro to use this strategy successfully, but if you want to use it in line with the strategy, you certainly can. It's a great indicator as well. I have it up sometimes on my other chart setups for the Multi-Squeeze Pro, but it's not necessary, right? Like I said, if you have your own tools that you like to use and you want to try and use these in addition with them to get a clearer signal, by all means, please feel free to do so. This is just the chart setup that I have been using over the years that I like and that I've found successful for my own trading plan. So, but a lot of the indicators I use are free ones available on most charting platforms, certainly on Thinkorswim. And yes, they are only available on Thinkorswim or TradeStation. And yeah, Todd, so if you've purchased the compound breakout tool, right, and let's say you just want the basic package, or maybe you want the elite package, call in to customer support or send them an email, and you won't have to pay this full $9.97 price, right? You can get it for cheaper because you already have the compound breakout tool. Like I mentioned, you will not need to repurchase the divergent bar indicator or compound breakout. This is certainly a lot cheaper than what it normally is in the store, right? You're getting a good discount here. I know some people were asking about the indicators earlier this month, and I said, hey, if you can hold off waiting until the class, do so, because you're going to get it at a much cheaper price than what it normally is priced at. But if you already have it, maybe you purchased it with one of the prior classes, or maybe you purchased it in the store individually, I'm not going to make you pay double for that, right? That's silly. So call into customer support or send them an email, and they will be happy to set up a package available to you to where you're just paying for the class, or you're just paying for the class in live trading, or the other indicator that you may or may not have. And yeah, absolutely, there will be a replay available for this webinar. As we kind of mentioned early on, or Daryl mentioned, this is on Zoom, so it's going to take him a little bit more time to render the video. It won't be sent out immediately, but within the next day, 2 days, hopefully the next day, this will be made available, the recording of this free webinar, and you guys can review it or re-listen to it then. Absolutely. And the live trading sessions will be exclusive to my class. So I know I typically am also in the options gold room and in the training room each day. But the live trading sessions for this class will solely be with the class. So if you're in the options room, I won't be in there on those trading days. I won't be in there on June 30th and July 2nd, because I will be in the live trading days specifically for this class. And as y'all might know, in the main trading room, I usually just walk through symbols and talk through trade ideas. And the class will actually be looking at implementing trade ideas, right? I'll show you how I do the intraday trades, which I don't usually alert out to the main room. So you can see in real time the trade setups that I like to do and how you can cover it without using that without having to use a day trade. So absolutely. And Raj, I won't have a session of this, but this webinar will be recorded. So if you signed up with your email, the recording will be sent out to you, and you can always review it at your own time whenever you have it free or available. Great, Rubberhead. Yeah, and I will also be sharing, so for those of you with Thinkorswim, I know there's shared links for the charts. And so what I am going to do, I just need to give it to Duncan, but I can't include all of the indicators that I use on my charts because some of them are still paid for, right? But what I will do with all the free studies that I have, I will share those links with you, both for my intraday chart setup and my main daily chart setup. So all the free indicators I use, the Bollinger Bands, the simple moving averages, if you want a copy of that, I will make that available to you in the class files so you can immediately just upload it into your charts. You don't have to worry about making sure all the internal settings are correct, and you'll be good to go that way with at least the free indicators. So the only things that you would need to add on are whatever paid indicators you want, and certainly the divergent bar and compound breakout tool. And yes, Frank, great question. There are scans for these signals. So we have a scan both for the divergent bar indicator, and the compound breakout tool is a little bit more complicated. So it's not going to give you a full scan, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But we have figured out a way to at least scan for a valid signal on the day it prints. So we'll talk about that, but there is a scan for this. There's definitely a scan for the divergent bar indicator. So we do have those available, and those two will be in the class download section. So if you lose them for some reason or something like that, you'll be able to go there and put them onto your Thinkorswim charts to be able to scan for those indicators. Absolutely. And yes, I do also have a video for those of you who are members. I have one in the trading room section. I also will update the one on the traders page that I have. It's a little bit older, so I'll try and make sure this gets updated tomorrow. But this is a free video. So if you go to my traders page here, which is made available to anyone, even if you don't have a membership, and you scroll down, this image here goes through my chart setups. Like I said, I'll try and get this updated tomorrow with the new setups. Most of the indicators are the same. The only thing it doesn't include is, I think, one of the indicators on here I don't use as often, so I've taken it off. And it doesn't include the divergent bar indicator, but almost all the other indicators I use can be found on this here. So if you don't want to use the shared link that I'm going to share for the free studies, if you want to immediately try and match my chart setup, you can click on this video, and I walk through each of the indicators I use, each of the internal settings, so you can match it up accordingly as well. And Sherry, yeah, I've been there. Certainly, it can be overwhelming when you hear all these terms when you're first starting off with trading. In the class, I really will look to break down everything from risk tolerance to how to set up the profit recycling strategy trade to the entries that I use on the charts. And I'll really try to break down everything I use. I've done a pretty good job of that in the slides so far. But this is why I also have the introduction to butterflies class, so you can really understand fly trade is as well, right? I try and give you as much information as possible. So if you're a newer trader, or you're still trying to get a grasp of what trading is and what options trading is in particular, I try and give you as much information as possible to really wrap your head around it. And of course, if you guys have questions, please feel free to contact customer support, or you can email me. I do get a lot of emails a day. I'm still trying to play catch up right now, but I'm more than happy to get back to you and try and explain things as well. Absolutely. I've been there. And my email is allison@simplertrading.com. Very easy. ALLISON@simplertrading.com. Yeah. I've been there too. I've been a new trader. Like I said, I didn't know what a call or put was. I was like, what is this terminology? What does bull and bear mean? Like, I had no idea when it came to trading when I first started learning. So I am more than happy to explain things to you guys. So before we wrap up here, if anyone has any last minute questions, I know I probably missed some as the chat's gone up, and I apologize if I missed your question. If you feel like I've missed your question and you really want it answered, like I said, please feel free to email customer support or to email me. Between the two of us, we should have an answer available to you. And yes, the chart setup video, let me, I'll just post this link in the chat here. This walks through all my charts, guys. So that way, even if you don't have a membership at Simpler Trading, like the options membership, you'll still be able to view that video on that page if you want to. And Richie, it mainly goes through spreads, both calls and puts, both directions. We'll certainly dive into that in the class itself. And Angie, you'll have to upload them onto it. Duncan, one of our tech support people, will actually be in early before the Saturday class starts, and he will walk through, and this too will be recorded, but he will walk through how you will upload those indicators onto your computer. If you don't, and he also has text documents that are sent out with the indicators in those emails. So you can follow the text documents, right? The step-by-step text documents, or if you just want to wait for the Saturday class, he'll be in there early to hop through and show you guys how to upload these indicators onto the platform so that they're all set up and ready to go before the actual class starts. And the class is from 12 to 4. I'm hoping to keep it within that time frame. It might go a little bit over, but the game plan is to have it be from 12 to 4 for my session of the class to start. And Danny, I did post the link. It's starting to scroll up now. I'll post it one more time here. So there's the link if you guys missed it. And then this is a one-time class, Sherry, so it will only be on Saturday, but it will be recorded. So you'll always be able to go back and review it. Absolutely. So thank you guys for joining me. Oh yeah, and then the live trading sessions really quickly. Let me go back. The live trading sessions will be June 30th and July 2nd from 8:30 to 11:30 and then 1 to 3. And the class, it depends on what package you get, Sherry. But the cheapest package is $397. And I'll keep it on this page. And you don't necessarily have to open a Thinkorswim account. If you don't want the indicators, right? Or maybe you already have TradeStation. These are available on TradeStation as well. But if you really want the indicators and you don't have Thinkorswim or TradeStation, then I do recommend opening one or two of the accounts. Doesn't mean you need to trade out of the account, right? Like I mentioned, for myself, for a while, I had just funded a Thinkorswim account, never traded out of it. I traded out of Tastyworks. But I had it a little bit of money in there so I could get the live data feed and be able to use the charts and everything else. So that's a workaround. And I am an options trader through and through. So I use definitely options for this strategy. Yes. So thank you guys for joining me. I do need to go and get my daughter in bed. It's a little bit past her bedtime. But like I said, if I missed your questions or you still have questions, please feel free to call in to customer support or email, or you can email me and I will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. But thank you so much for joining me this evening. I hope you have a great rest of your trading day. As always, may the trade be with you. And I look forward to seeing y'all on Saturday if you do decide to participate in the class. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.